This is a speed square.
You've probably spotted these at your local home improvement store, or maybe there's one collecting dust in your shop. But wait, there's more to this tool than meets the eye. Like, why is it called a speed square? Or have you ever wondered what those lines and numbers even mean?
Today, we'll be revealing 15 things a speed square can do. And I bet that last one will surprise you.
Wow, I can't believe that actually worked.
By the end of this video, you'll know how to use a speed square, and you might even be able to show the pros a thing or two. Come join us on our adventure. Let's start with the basics. This is a square. It's used to check if something is, you guessed it, square. But have you ever checked if your square is actually square? That's right, not all squares are created equal.
We'd had trouble getting square cuts for years, and just thought our miter saw had too much play in it.
Then, we finally checked our square and realized that we'd been using a bad square this entire time. Now, don't worry, you can check your squares very easily. And here's how you do it.
The speed square has two reference surfaces. These allow it to check inside corners and outside corners. Let's start by checking the outer edge. To check this one, grab a straight edge that is at least twice as long as your square. A level works well for this. Then, clamp it down to your work surface. Now, lay a sheet of material on your bench that is at least as thick as the lip of your square and clamp it down as well. With the speed square held tight against your straight edge, mark a line on your material. You'll want to be using the sharpest line you can. Then, flip your speed square over and bring it up to the first line, and mark a second line.
If these two lines overlap perfectly, hooray! Your square is square. If not, then return that square to the store or chuck it in the scrap bin.
Checking the speed square's inside edge is simpler, but first you need a board with a straight edge. The factory edge of plywood usually works well enough for this, but check it with your straight edge first. Now place the speed square on the board, press the edge tight, and mark a line. Once again, flip it over, line it up, and mark the second line. Did the lines match up?
A reliable square is crucial for accurate cuts, and obviously, we learned that the hard way.
Once you've got a square, it's your go-to tool for checking everything else is square. I feel like I'm saying square a lot. Maybe they should have called it a speed triangle? I don't know. Checking square is easy. You have a door that sticks? Well, maybe the frame is out of square.
Yeah, that seems about right.
Or maybe you want to check that and make sure that that bed frame you spent hours making is actually square.
Ah, much better. Let's say you cut a board and you want to make sure your fence is set right. You can use this inside lip here to place it against your board and check if your cut was square.
Now, if your cut isn't square, you can use the speed square to fix it. Let us show you how.
If your cut was off for some reason, start by checking your saw's angle setting. This should be set to 90, and most saws have a positive locating feature here. Assuming your saw is set to 90, then you need to adjust your fence. Ours has screws in the back that you can loosen and shift the fence until it is square. Pull your blade back down and lock it in place. Then place your speed square against the fence and slide it up to your blade. Make sure you avoid the teeth of the saw blade. If you see a gap, then you need to adjust your fence. Oh, and we recommend checking that blade is perpendicular to the piece, so that you get a perfect cut. Much better.
Don't stop at the miter saw though. You can also use your speed square to square up your table saw fence.
Every table saw is different, but if your table is square to your miter slots, then you can use the edge of your table as the reference surface to check many different features of your table saw.
Don't have these fancy tools? No worries. Your speed square also lends a hand with getting square cuts with a circular saw or a jigsaw.
First, check to make sure that your blade is square. Then place the saw where you want the cut to be. Place your square up against the side of the saw and hold the square tight to the board. Make sure your fingers are far away from where the blade will be and make your cut. Finally, use your square to check the cut. Perfect. Bonus tip. If you tend to forget your measurements as you're walking to your cutting station, you can use the speed square to keep track of them. Just write the measurement on the side of the square, cut your board, and then wipe it off when you're done. Or pick up one of these fast cap tape measures where you can write it on the side of the tape. We'll leave a link to these in the description down below.
But what if you don't even have a saw? No problem. Just use the speed square to cut the wood. Alright, so maybe that wasn't the cleanest cut. Let's stick to the strength of the speed square. Perhaps the most obvious use for the speed square is to mark square cuts. However, there is a technique to getting the most accurate lines possible.
First, you want to mark the measurement using a tape measure. Then, place your pen, pencil, or marking knife on the mark. Bring the square over to it, and then mark your line. This way you aren't off slightly due to the tip of the tool. Another great layout feature are these notches. Those notches on your speed square are gold for marking rip cuts. Just place your marking tool into the notch and then slide the speed square along a board. We especially like to use this before gripping wide boards to ensure that we get the grain pattern we want on the final product.
You may have noticed that there are also lines along the face of the speed square.
These are your layout lines, and they are your secret weapon for making precise offsets from the edge of the square. Let's put them to work with a practical example here. Say you want to join these two boards together. To create a strong joint, we want to cut out a notch in this board that will fit in this other board. Here's how we do that.
It's good practice to use the same tool to measure that you are going to use to mark. So holding the speed square against this board, you can see that it is 3.5 inches wide. It's a 2x4, as it should be, but always verify.
Now you can mark the cut lines on this primary board. Let's start a timer and see how quickly this goes.
Say you want the cut to be 10 inches from this edge. You'll mark this point using the speed square. Then bring the speed square up to that point and mark the square line. With the square still here, you can use the layout lines to make a mark at 3.5 inches from that line. Move your square to this second point and mark the second vertical line. We want our cutout to be 2 inches deep, so place the pencil in the 2-inch line guide and make a mark from line to line.
Ta-da! Perfectly laid out and ready to cut. It only took me
27
seconds.
Now, we'll admit that we had this speed square for several years before we learned this next trick. But guess what? Your speed square is actually handy for marking angles.
If you look at these tick marks along the long edge here, you'll see that they are actually angle measurements. Here's how this works. You first need to know where your angle is going to end on one side of a board. Place your speed square so the corner labeled pivot is on that point. You can see that the other end of the T-guide edge is at the 0 angle position. If you want a 20-degree angle, pivot the speed square until the 20 lines up with the edge, and then mark the line. You now have a line that is 20 degrees off of square.
And while we're talking about pivoting the square, here's another neat trick.
Let's say you need to cut an arc on the end of a board or a semicircular cutout. Your speed square can help with this as well. Just place a pencil against the edge and then use that pivot point to sweep an arc. And if you're doing a semicircular cutout, you can hold your pencil against the ruler and sweep an arc. Then flip your square over and sweep the other side. Unfortunately, the line notches don't line up with the edge of the square, so this does take a bit of practice.
Huh. If it can draw arcs, do you think it can also fly in an arc? While this use for a speed square could be an entire video on its own, let's talk about these marks right here.
They are used to measure and mark the pitch of a roof. The pitch of a roof is usually measured as a ratio of rise over run. For example, your roof could rise 1 inch for every 2 inches of horizontal travel. To standardize these fractions, roofs are usually specified as a rise per 12 inches, so a 1-2 pitch would be the same as a 6 and 12 pitch. If you look closely at a speed square, you can see there are markings here that probably range from 1 to 30. They are also likely marked as common. These would be your rise per 12 inches. They are used exactly the same way as the angle markings. So, if you pivot the scale to 12 and mark the line, you just marked a cut line that would result in 12 inches of rise per 12 inches of run. If you're familiar with geometry, you'd know that this is a 45-degree angle, and sure enough, it matches up.
You can also use these marks to measure an unknown pitch.
Using a level, you can place it on the square, like so. Pivot the square until you find level, and then read off the slope, aka the pitch. Or, using a plumb bob, you can hold the string at the pivot point and align your level with the top or bottom edge of your board. Then, you can read the slope the string touches, like this. Since you now know the slope, you can use these same numbers to mark a new board and cut out the same angle.
Bonus tip. You can also use a speed square and a plumb bob to tell if a board is level.
Just place your square on its long edge and hold the string at your pivot point. If your string crosses the 45-degree mark, then you know that that board is level. Now, back to our roofing example.
You may have noticed there are also marks here that are labeled hip-val.
If you're a roofer, you'll understand when to use these instead of the common measurements. Basically, this is a hip and this is a valley. And these boards have slightly different angles than the rest of the rafters do. So you would use these markings instead. This next feature is another roofing trick, but it could also be used for cutting out stair risers, which is more likely if you're a DIYer like us. It's called a seat cut, though it's also commonly referred to as a bird's mouth. That's where your rafter meets your walls.
Some squares have a line or a marker at 3.5 inches that makes marking a seat cut even easier. However, not all scales have a line at 3.5 inches, but you can easily add one by using another square at the 3.5 inch mark and then scoring a line across your scale. Assuming you know where the bird mouth needs to go, you'll first mark the vertical line or plumb line. Now you can flip the square over and line up this line that is at 3.5 inches with a plumb line and mark across here. And there you go. Your notch is marked and you're ready for cutting.
But what if you don't want your cut to be a 3.5 inch board? Say you need a larger seat cut, or you're cutting stair risers.
Instead, you can use this line. After marking your plumb line, you'll use the ruler to put a mark at the depth of your cut. Then flip your square over and align the seat cut line to your plumb line. This line is perpendicular to the 45-degree edge. So, if you mark a line along the 45-degree edge, then you'll have both sides of your seat cut marked.
Okay, one final tip for all you builders out there. You can use a speed square to help make sure that your boards are aligned before you nail or screw them together.
Just hook a speed square on the edge of one board, then slide it until the square presses flush against your second board, then nail it or screw it into place. Yay, perfectly flush.
Now, what am I gonna do with this not square square?
Wow, I can't believe that actually worked. Well, worked-ish.
If you're eager to see how we put these speed square tricks to use in a real project, then check out how we used our speed square to build this piece of furniture in this next video.
Where'd my head go?
I don't know.
Am I still here?
Okay. I almost got it.